myself years ago, and there was something going on in the area where I planned on getting a hotel room, so none were available. I couldn't keep my eyes focused on the road, so I had to pull into a rest area for a nap. There was no other cars around, and I was so afraid I'd wake up to someone at my window like that. That was before your cell phone, so I already felt vulnerable, with no way to get help or let anyone know where I was. Those places are so creepy at night. Luckily, a short nap was enough, and I was able to keep going until I was able to find a room. And the OP said, very often there are cases when you stop in a parking lot and very strange people can approach you. You immediately start to worry about your life. It's true. There are some really strange things and strange people at red stops, especially when you're alone or at night. I've been cross country, but I I was craving fried chicken, so I went on Google Maps and started searching fried chicken near me, scrolling through reviews. I just read a little bit, spoiled myself. Eventually I landed on Popeyes of all places. Now not all Popeyes are the same, so I was scrolling through reviews when I came across one that stopped me cold. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like, "The chicken here is so good and fresh, almost as good as human meat." Obviously, I thought that was weird as hell. Curiosity got the best of me, so I clicked on the reviewer's profile. If you don't know, you can check someone's past reviews that way. That's when things got really unsettling. The account didn't look like a throwaway troll, no profile pic. But from the name and writing it, I assumed maybe a Caucasian guy. And he had plenty of normal, legit-looking reviews mixed in. But in so many of them scattered across restaurants all over Southern California and even the high desert, he was comparing dishes to human meat. Stuff like, "This meal is almost as good as human flesh," or "Human meat would really complement their sides." It weirded me the fuck out. I remember just sitting there thinking, what the hell did I just read? Honestly, I think I lost my appetite because I don't even remember ordering Popeyes after that. Oh my gosh. Oh, how I wish I had taken screenshots of that profile, because who knows what that guy was into, or still is. I even tried looking back for it last year, but was never able to find it again. What makes it so creepy for me is it just reinforces the fact that we walk among people who might seem normal on the outside, but our God knows what they're into or do behind closed doors. I'd love to know if anyone else in Southern California has ever come across something like this, because to this day it still creeps me out. No one knows, this is a deleted user, but someone says no one knows what happens in people's minds. Or maybe he was trying to be edgy after watching Hannibal. Another person said, called Megalodor, or Megalordo. Probably some wannabe. We had someone like this in our country a few years ago. He was constantly sending to media articles about the merits of cannibalism, and one day he actually killed someone and didn't have the balls to eat. because that would already be the roof. So as far as I'm aware, there shouldn't be anyone up there unless they were workers. But that doesn't make any sense. It was too early in the morning, and there was no access that leads directly to it for any civilians. And the scream didn't echo into the open space like someone was standing on the roof. The scream sounded like it was confined in a room. Walls are thin, so thin I can hear my neighbors' activities and even their conversations. The scream was loud enough, so I assumed that other people would hear it as well, but even my parents, who were just at the end of the hallway, didn't wake up from their sleep. It was like I was the only one who heard it. Sometime later, I stepped out of the apartment and looked up at the roof. It was still dark out, so I couldn't see anything particular. was in his late 40s, and his mother Susan in her late 70s. Every week, like clockwork, we would have a unit bring Susan to and from her dialysis treatments 3 times a week. Everyone knew her at the station because we had been doing this for quite some time with Susan. We were all familiar with her and her son, whether it was the crew seeing her in person and taking care of her, or speaking to her or her son on the phone frequently about the appointments as I had done. Everyone knew her. Naturally, when crews had news about her health, they would report back to keep everyone in the loop with how she was. At one point, she was not feeling well at all, but she wanted to go to her dialysis appointment, so naturally we obliged and took her in. At this appointment, while receiving dialysis treatment, she lost consciousness and was promptly taken by our crew to the hospital. When it was time again for her dialysis appointment, we gave the hospital a call to see if she had been released and was able to go to the appointment. The hospital staff informed us that she would likely be released the following day and would be receiving that dialysis treatment in the hospital. Then the next treatment time rolled around and we called the hospital and we were told she had been released from their care the other day. This was great news, but a little strange due to the fact that we were always her first call to transport her to or from any hospital or appointment, and we hadn't transported her anywhere. We quickly moved on, however, and called David, her son, to see if she was going to be requiring us for her treatment that day. He informed us she wasn't feeling well and that she wasn't up to it, but that he was considering taking her back to the hospital. We told him that if he needed us to just give us a call until further notice, so we canceled her trip for the day. We never got a call. Next appointment rolled around and we called David again to ask if she would be going. He said she was sick and she'd be back in the hospital. She was back in the hospital. Weird again since we hadn't taken her, but that didn't seem that off considering her health had been deteriorating. Next appointment, the same thing happened. We called David. His mom was in the hospital. We move on. Now, this is where things took a bit of a turn. When the next appointment came up, we had tried calling David to ask about his mother's status, but he never answered or returned our calls. So being that we had a contract with Susan and were to take her to these appointments unless told otherwise, we sent a crew to collect her for treatment. When the crew arrived at scene, they knocked on the door with no response. They knocked again and were greeted by David smoking a cigarette. David seemed surprised. The crew said that they were here to pick up Susan for her appointment. David responded, stating he had forgotten to call, but Susan was still at the hospital not doing well. The crew gave their best wishes and David shut the door. But the crew felt that something was off. They immediately radioed to dispatch that something was wrong, and they requested we call the hospital David said she was at to see if she was still there. The hospital had no record of her being there since we last knew, so we had the crew leave the scene and we called for a welfare checkup on Susan at her son's home. We heard nothing the rest of the day from police, David, Susan, or anyone else involved. The next morning I came into work and the very first call I took began with, "This is Sheriff blank 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 with blank blank blank. I'm calling to report back to the welfare check you asked us to perform yesterday." I was nervous as he sounded concerned, and I didn't really expect them to call us back with any news. He proceeded to let me know that upon arrival to the home, they spoke with David, who was adamant his mother didn't feel well, but she was home from the hospital. The police asked to just check on Susan to make sure she obviously he was suffering from some sort of mental issue and grief. But the thing was, he had never taken good care of her until she was dead. No news coverage, no updates from police further than that, nothing. Stuff like this happens in your hometown and you'll never know it, right? Crazy, right? Holy crap. That's so sad. Poor Susan. Very sad story. Someone said very sad story, but I'm just as intrigued by this special transportation contract Susan had with the most expensive Uber service on the planet. Y'all even contacted her for appointments. Who does that and who can afford it? Last I heard, one single ambulance ride runs into the thousands of dollars. The OP said, we were not 911. We were a small station with some partnerships with 911 facilities, meaning we took a lot of inter-facility transfers, emergency calls from retirement homes, some 911 calls, and we also ran a wheelchair transportation van. Since Susan couldn't get around, we were contracted to take her to and from appointments for a set price. None of my business how she afforded it, but we had multiple people with the same contract. That makes sense. And then someone said, my sister is disabled. My sister is disabled and Medicaid covers her transport to and from doctor's appointments and hospital visits. It's just a transport van, not an ambulance. Okay. That's so sad. That's like a movie. That's like a movie horror, like a true horror film, really though. Okay. Oh no. I want to see how long this is. I'm going to keep this one for next week because I think I'm going to say goodbye for now. I hope that these stories elicited some cozy fear, I guess, some chilling tingles, or maybe it made you fall asleep for just a little bit, relax a little bit, just listening to the mouth sounds and whispers. Let me know what your favorite story was. I feel like we had quite a few different stories today, some quite chilling, some small, like some really short and some really long. I think the first one was my favorite, and then this, like, very close. The first one with, like, the guy right outside the window was my favorite, and then this last one was my, like, super close. Like, I liked them almost the exact same. They're, like, really spooky and, like, horrifying to me. So, yeah. Thanks for dropping by. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it might be. I hope this finds you cozy and focused, or leaves you cozy and focused. And we'll see you in the